And you know what she said? I love you. It's time to love yourself. And if it weren't for her saying that, I would have never seen the fact that people love me. And the option wasn't suicide anymore. My sister loves me. My mother loves me. I got people who love me. I needed the love and support community. But first, I had to be willing to know that someone else is trying to love me. And I needed to let them in.
You don't have to have a degree in psychology. You don't have to have all these things. You just have to have the ability to provide somebody with hope. Hope is telling someone that you're going to stick through something hard with them, and then being prepared to help that person get connected to help.
We have emergency services as well as outpatient therapy. There's a wide continuum of mental health services that are available.
It is definitely a community issue. It takes the school system, it takes the faith-based community, it takes the hospital system, it takes all of us working together that we're going to reduce the rates of suicide and to let people know that there are folks out there who care about them.
So our barbers attend mental health first aid. I mean, the barbers are the frontline soldiers. We get the rawness, we get the raw experience of the clients, of the community, and so we have to be equipped. Personally, I've seen young men who dealt with depression in the state of suicide. And if they could just get some word of encouragement or someone who just cares, you will see their spirit just go up. And if we could add that hope with some information, I mean, their life will change. Their life will change.
I think as people, we are designed to need other people. There's so much relief and so much connection and community that people find in letting down their guard. Hey guys! The first choice that we had to make was we can have the choice to bury this, or we can go all out and let God use our story in this for good.
Thanks so much for coming and spending some time listening to my story. I'm super excited to be sharing it with you guys. As you know, our family has spent a lot of time processing over the last 18 months, trying to figure out how we use our story to help others, and went through the grieving process of, yes, I was angry and
so yeah, the process was hard. It went from who am I angry at and how has this happened to, okay, it has happened, and how do we make sure that good comes out of this?
I feel like what Tyler, if he works still here, would do, what he essentially wanted to do.
Yes.
And could not do himself.
Yes.
That you're able to carry on.
Yes, I think Tyler would be really proud. I think he was so selfless that this is exactly what he would want.
So I would challenge people in our communities with good intention and wisdom. Just find out what can you do to help. These people need help. I need help.
I think everyone has the ability to be a front lineman. I mean, at some point, at some part in your life, you are on the front line. So I just want to encourage everybody to just, pick up your equipment, fight the good fight.
I'm a licensed therapist at this facility where I was treated for a suicide attempt. I mean, it doesn't get much more full circle than that. That's why I know that recovery is possible.
And years ago is when I thought about suicide. And I still think about it now. But I know that I have to keep going, and that there's tons of muscles in my body that tell me that today is not the day you're ending.
The journey has just been a roller coaster. I think it's little glimpses of happiness, the happiness that we have, start to come back. I mean, good can come out of this and will come out of this. So I know that God loves me. I know that God loved Tyler and loves him today. And I can choose joy because of that.
You might be struggling, facing so many obstacles, but you're not crazy either. There are people out there who have felt like this, and they've lived on it. And I am with you. You can do this.
You have no idea how many lives you're going to touch. I promise you. I promise you. I bet my wheelchair that if you just choose to live, there's someone or someone's that is going to need to hear your story on how you got over, on how you made it. Please allow God, number one, and allow someone or someone to journey with you through the pain, trauma, and the mental health. God bless you.
Heavy, right?
Right. I know that was a heavy video to watch, a good video to watch though. And hopefully we'll have about a good amount of time to unpack it.
There we go.
I feel like everything is trolling us today though. All right, Alan, you can come on up. Oh, there you are, just blending in. Here you go, babe. I'm gonna get a bucket. Thanks.
Okay, as we transition, guys. How'd y'all feel? Like, what's something that really stuck to you in the video that you all watched? Yes, ma'am.
That you have no idea how much people will never touch what you just did.
Really good. Anybody else?
Do you have questions? Do you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Absolutely. Stay with all of this.
Have you guys ever thought about, just in general, what mental health is? What do you think? What do you think mental health is? That's kind of where I would love to start and just kind of break it down. A lot of people, from my experience, really don't know how to break that down or what that means. So I'm kind of curious what you guys think. When I say, or when someone says mental health, what does that mean? Okay. Emotional, social. Okay. Anyone else? It's hard, right? I saw a hand back here somewhere. Yeah. So again, like it's again, mental health. It's how do you define that, right? Like how do you break it down? And I think one thing that I would love to communicate with you and anyone else that I meet, I really honestly I think about 6 categories that can kind of break down mental health in a very kind of like small, different areas, right? Some of them you're going to be like, okay, but it's true. So first one, sleep. How many hours of sleep do you think we as humans should get? Yeah, 6, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in that range, right? Now, does that mean go to sleep for 3 hours, wake up, and then you're up for an hour, and then go back to sleep for 2 hours? I mean, that's not quality sleep, right? So there's a difference. So sleep is one. Diet. What do you think that means? So not skipping meals, right? Eating healthy. Sometimes people will say like brain healthy eating, which I know is like, what does that even mean, right? But at the end of the day, you guys know what healthy eating is. And that's a big piece, right? So we got sleep, we got diet, exercise. Now what do you think that means? But what? I mean, does exercise count as like a 20-minute walk? Just a walk? Yeah, it does. Whatever. It could be anything. It could be, I mean, literally, 20-minute walk. That counts, right? If you can do that and prioritize that, that's a big deal. So those three, right? You said this one, social. What does that mean? Social connections. How? Yeah. So in this day and age, especially with COVID, what happened to all of us?
Social distance.
Social distance, yes. Isolate because we couldn't leave our house, right? So what did our social interactions, how did they change? Yeah, it was online, right? Everything was online. So when I say social connection, I'm talking about face-to-face. When can we be in the presence of somebody else and have a conversation, or just not even have a conversation if you're, let's be honest, guys typically do things together, side by side. Girls typically are face-to-face talking. Not all the time, but typically, right? But still, when you're with somebody, social connection. Number 5, managing stress. Who gets stressed out? All right, everybody, come on. Everybody gets stressed out. But the key there is, how do you manage stress? So the question is, when you are feeling stressed, what do you do to feel better? And I'm not saying I don't want anyone to kind of share, but do you guys all know what you can do when you feel stressed to like feel better? I mean, that's one, right? There are so many other things, and everyone's different. Like one of the things that I love to do is either go for a run or go hit golf balls. Now, not everyone is going to do that, right? That's not going to work for everybody. So what are the things that work specifically for you? Managing stress, right? Number 5, meaning and purpose. Or sorry, number 6, meaning and purpose. What do you think that means? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anyone else? And so these answers, a lot of people give me the same answer. It's meaning and purpose in life, right? Like, well, what if you don't know what you want to do? What if you have no clue, have no direction? Well, then what? So when I say meaning and purpose, I'm talking about meaning and purpose in the day. Okay? And if you think about it, just today, all of you have some meaning or some purpose for today. You know? And so, for example, one of my friends today, actually one of my friend's kids, is having a birthday party. I'm going to go, right? Kind of sounds silly to say, but that is a purpose for me today to show up, right? Not for me, but for the kid. Because the kid, and I know the family, and my kids know their kids, right? I could choose not to, but I was invited. I have and he's a good friend, so that's a purpose for me. right? 6 things to break it down. And you can rank yourself. You have a scale of 1 to 5, right? 1 being not very good, 5 being excellent. You can rank yourself in all 6 categories on any given day or moment and ask yourself how you're doing. You know, and you can ask someone else, how are you doing in these areas? Mental health. Mental health. Any questions about that?
Any questions?
Sure, let's elevate upstairs. Go up one more so. Going through my notes. I'm just going to go through something that I think has stuck with me in that particular point. It says, understanding that I didn't understand was when no one has an alternative, or they think they have an alternative to correctional help, people like Alan, they result to other things. I think the key when he says you do a self-analysis of where you are in all of those 6 areas. And a lot of times I think if we lack somewhere or if something is wrong, we tend to, I guess, not compensate. What's the word I'm looking for? I think you'll drown it out with something else. And the guy who was the former drug dealer, how he said that he used to numb himself when he had, growing up, it was no, expressing yourself, checking your mental state, but instead it was numbing that area with other things. And though I want to believe that no one has ever, God willing, would never have to resort to drugs, there are other things that you can do to kind of shield yourself from actually addressing whatever issues you had. I don't know where I was going with that, but I felt like that was really key. As far as people thinking, oh, only drug dealers have mental issues, only substance abusers, when we can go to other things. I know for me, when I would go through, depression, believe it or not, my alternative was, you know what, I'm just gonna play video games all day. Harmless, right? It doesn't hurt anybody, it makes me feel better, I can shut myself off from other people. However, that was not the resolution to my mental health. That was not addressing, that wasn't helping me fix it, but it was to distract me from what my issues were. It was only prolonging and probably causing me to just prolonging the fact that I needed to address whatever I was going through. So I want you to understand that it does not have to show, like whatever it is you're using to distract yourself from whatever it is you're going through, it will not look like a bad thing. It could be just avoidance entirely that could be the reason why you are not addressing your self-analysis, so to speak.
Yeah, and to that point, we talked maybe last week or the week before, Alan, about how little things become bigger things. And I would like for you to kind of talk about some of those things that you've noticed in patients of any age that pile up and can cause mental health, poor mental health. And then speaking specifically to suicide, I think in the video, I can't remember exactly what they called it, but they pretty much I just call them triggers, but like things that, social things that can happen or other factors that can happen that put you on this path that you never really thought that you would be.
Yeah. Does this work? I think at the end of the day, there's lots of different things, and it's funny you mentioned video games. Personally, I work with mainly boys, and that can be something that is an example of someone finds themselves playing, and when they look around, they're by themselves, they're in a dark room, usually in their bedroom, and they're staying up late, right? And so that happens a lot, and that can pile up because it isolates them. But to kind of the point of a trigger, at the end of the day, I think some of that is stress and what causes anxiety, causes us to feel sad, or causes us to have just a loss of purpose and meaning, and losing the kind of the small scale picture. We want to think big, and that's not a bad thing, right? But when we just think about the big, sometimes we lose, like, okay, well, I still have something to do today. I can still make a difference today. And I think that's a big piece of that too. And again, I think, and not to blame it all on COVID, but I like to blame COVID. And it's unfortunate. But now we're on the other side. So how can we get back? I say we're on the other side. I hope we're on the other side. And get back to kind of where we were.
Listen, COVID is a good thing. For those of you who were not here a couple weeks ago, we kind of touched lightly on suicide. One of the things, and what kind of resurfaced in here, was the mother who lost her son. They found out about their son being suicidal because his friend had been implied by him that he was thinking about ending his life. And we also talked about how physical wellness can be seen, but mental health cannot be seen. There's really a lot of people that, and we had some examples of people who seem like to be living a good life, but ended up taking their own lives. And with that, there sometimes where they'll give subtle clues or hints to them having a slow mental declination to where they're like, I don't want to live anymore. And so, Alan, when you face kids who may not say it themselves, but they say, hey, I have experienced, or I know a friend, or I know someone who has been thinking about it, but they don't have you as an alternative or a resource, what are some alternatives, or how could someone kind of lead them in the right direction? What could we tell that kid to tell his friend, or what's some advice you could give to them?
You guys might not like my answer, but my answer is going to be encourage that kid to talk to the kid's parents. Now I know that can be depending on the relationship that someone has with their parents. I know that sometimes relationships with parents aren't the greatest, but I think that's the best place to start. And if there is some pushback, up or on the screen, there was the National Suicide Hotline. Now that number has changed. It changed literally like 2 days ago. So instead of 911, who everyone knows that, they try to make it easy. It's 988. So it literally changed just 2 or 3 days ago. And that would be another kind of resource for that friend to talk to his friend. Hey, have you thought about calling this number?
Sort of to piggyback off of that, in the video we saw the young lady who lost her mother and eventually lost a friend who also was dealing with suicidal thoughts, but her friend was who introduced her to Cuddy. Can you talk about how, even if it's whether we're dealing with our own mental health problems or whether it's someone around us, a friend, how we can be supportive and ensure that we're not saying the wrong things, or if we even need to say anything at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when someone kind of verbalizes, and someone said vulnerable over here earlier, and is willing to say, yeah, I've had thoughts of maybe self-harm. I think sometimes it's really easy to say, what? Why would you think that? What are you thinking? Versus, well, tell me more about that. Where did that come from? How did you get to that place? Of just being curious. That's the word I use a lot, is how can we ask curious questions and avoid kind of call it judgment, because we think, wow, how did someone get to that place, right? So I think that that's a big piece. What was something else was?
Well, I had pregnancy brain, so I can't even remember what I said.
What was something else I was supposed to say?
My mind is going a million miles a minute. I feel like I got questions too. Does anybody have any questions? Oh yeah, yes.
So what if like someone who's been getting it for a while and they're using it to cope rather than actually
What was the first part?
You mean like self-harm?
yeah.
A lot of the time, and research will show this too, that if someone is engaging in self-harm, it's because I'm not going to say because it's the sole reason, but a lot of it is emotional. I know you had mentioned that earlier. So the struggle of not knowing how to deal with our emotions. And so they don't feel anything, and so they maybe are doing that to feel something, right? And I would say that to help these people, this person, to know how to deal with their emotions and figure out a different way to cope, right? And maybe that is sharing, maybe it's one of your friends, and maybe it is like having a conversation and you just listen, right? That in and of itself is coping. Just help.
I want to make sure we get in these two questions that some of the students have as well. One of them is, why is suicide silent if it happens so much every day? It's a big question.
Yeah. To the video, did it surprise you guys when, so Vic Armstrong, he was the guy, one of the guys that was talking. He is kind of he's the president of Behavioral Health here in Charlotte, if you know where that is. So he's up there, but he talked about his experience in the elevator where he was talking to someone and like, no, people of color do not do this, right? And he's like, actually, that's wrong. Like I think he said it's almost double, right, in comparison. And there's lots of different reasons for that, and who knows why. But at the end of the day, like, gosh, how can we go back to kind of be focusing on our mental health and looking at those categories again?
Yeah, I think to piggyback off of what Alan said, I think one of the reasons it's perceived to be silent is because, again, it's unexpected. Suicide deaths, in most cases, it comes of, this is no death plan. You don't see a deterioration of a person always. Most chances, and I'm taking this based, I'm just pulling this information from what I learned today and a couple weeks ago, is that most often when people are going through depression or suicidal thoughts or thoughts of ending their life, they subdue it, they keep it away, they seclude themselves from other people, so it's not seen. And as a result, we don't, when it happens, it comes as a surprise. Unfortunately, another issue with, speaking from personal experience with African American households, when a family has to discuss the suicide of a family member, for one, they don't want to talk about it, and for two, it is received or perceived as though mental illness is something that we should be not afraid to talk about, but be ashamed to talk about. It's like, oh, I don't want to tell people that my child was not well to the point where he killed himself. For several reasons. That, a lot of parents, they'll think that it was a result of something that the parent did, when, again, these can be disorders, emotional and social disorders that may not come from the household, or maybe it has, but there's a lot of reasons or obstacles that cause them to not express or share that information, which kind of leads us to the next question.
Can I interrupt you real fast?
Absolutely.
Sorry. And I hope it's okay that I share this, but a year ago, I was here on a Thursday night talking with your pastor, right? And he had gotten up and spoken and shared a little bit of his story about one of his daughters. And he said at that moment, that was the first time a year ago that he even mentioned his daughter's name in public. And I found that to be so powerful because he speaks it, right? He's allowing himself to be vulnerable and open up. And my hope is that people kind of ask him some questions because he allowed himself to be open to that. And for him, that's powerful.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal, is that people can use themselves as an opportunity to be a testimony to real life situations. We hear about stories. We'll see it on TV. Unfortunately, we hear about it when it's already happened, but to hear from people that were quote unquote in the ground zero and to say, because a lot of times people think it's a hopeless situation where it's like, which I'm gonna lead to the next question, I don't know what to do or nobody has seen me. And we were able to see through our pastor of someone who is like, this is coming from a parent who cares and loves and wanted to be able to avail themselves in hopes that people who are going through, like, I know someone's out there that is rooting for me to continue. Which leads to this next question that we got from somebody. It says, what do you do when nobody stops you or checks on you? What does one person do who's dealing with these issues that has no one to check up on them? Or just that.
Yeah. Again, that takes a lot of courage. My encouragement would be to at least talk to somebody. But again, that takes a ton of courage to open yourself up to sharing with somebody that, hey, this is what I'm kind of dealing with right now. And my hope is that you can talk to somebody that you feel like you can trust. And again, it goes back to the social connections with people that we have, that who are the ones, even if it's one person, that you feel like, yeah, okay, I can talk to this person and get me, hopefully, on a better track. But I'm not going to lie, it takes a lot of courage.
In the video, we saw that the young man that sadly took his own life, that he said he was dealing with loneliness. And there may be a student here that is feeling similar to that, like they're alone in whatever it is that they're dealing with. And I understand, patient confidentiality and all that stuff, but I'd like for you to share a little bit about the types of people that you see and the benefits. Are they young? Are they older? Are they all around? And what are some things some common things that you're seeing that might resonate with a student that's listening to them?
Yeah, so a big one actually is the feeling that I'm the only one dealing with this. And that is so far from the truth. And I can speak that just because I talk to kids all day long, right? And to your point, the majority of the kids that I talk to are 11, 12 through 25. So in that range. And I'm working with two kids in particular right now that come to my mind that have both said, gosh, I'm alone. I don't know who to talk to. I don't relate to anybody. And I can easily share. I wish, there's a part of me that wishes, like, hey, you need to call this person and this person and this person, but I can't do that. But it would be, you're not alone, ever. And sometimes it might feel that way, but again, if it goes back to how vulnerable are people, you'll find that people can relate to you more than you might realize or think. So I think loneliness is a big one. I see a lot of kids that are struggling with how to make friends, and that's a big one. Again, not to blame COVID, but blaming COVID, we've lost a little bit of how to socialize, how to ask questions, how to feel comfortable in our own skin, to feel confident enough to have a conversation with somebody or get to know somebody. And I think that's a big one. And 2 years worth of isolation, like, yeah, that makes sense. I feel that. I felt when I started getting out again, I was like, oh gosh, what do I say? What do I do? How do I like hold my hands and whatever? And it's like you lose it. It comes back, right? And it has come back. But yeah, you've probably seen this. I talk with my hands a lot. And so at the beginning, or when I first came out, I was like, oh gosh, I don't know what to do. Like, I gotta do this or something. But yeah, so it's just going back to what was good.
Piggyback off of what you said about so when I was in college, there was a moment in, there's spring and fall. My summer, I was staying in my apartment off campus. I had no money, had no food, didn't have a job, and I don't think I had a cell phone at the time. And I was staying about 3.5 hours from school. Didn't have a car, nobody's car. And in the summer break, there's maybe, at my school, there's maybe 15 people in my vicinity. My school was in the woods. I say all that to say that I was in a level where I was super depressed and no one was around. Like, it was just quiet. I was hungry. I just felt disconnected. I was like, I wasn't suicidal at the time, but I was like, if I would have died, no one would know or care. And it wasn't until I just told somebody, man, I'm hungry. I over the phone, and they were like, let me order you a pizza so you can eat. And I was like, oh man, thank you. I really appreciate that. And they was like, yeah, just tell me when you need something. Like, I love you. Let me know how I can help. That's the end of the $20. If this is what I can do to keep you connected, because I care about you, all I need for you to do is just connect with me. And it made me realize that, okay, if I just let people know where I am, or just how I feel, that, people will affirm you in not only how much they love you, but how important you are, not just to them, but to people around you. And I think that a lot of times, I know for me in that particular case, that mental state that I was in was just I convinced myself that it was delusion, that I was not convinced of how important I was. Again, talking about our purpose and meaning, that all that was out the window. Despite the fact that I was in college, that I was spending loads of money to be there because I had a purpose. All of a sudden, I was like, well, why am I here? It's because my mind got to a place where I actually thought that I was not important. And it took for me reaching out to people and them reminding me of my importance. So to that question that Alan kicked us off with about just expressing yourself, it takes for you to make that step of letting them know, hey, this is where I am. This is where I am. I just want to open up. I know that's hard for us, but you'd be astounded to know how much you mean to a lot of people by just being open to them. I know for me, and my wife has even said it sometimes, that, people want to hear more about you, more than just what you like, what you're into, but, that you have feelings and that your feelings are connected to them. Because that'll do a load to your self-esteem, to your mental health, to your social health, and, it'll remind you that you are important.
And I'm going to piggyback. I think, just think about this. I would say guys relate to that. Mm-hmm. We want to keep it shallow. We don't want to go deep. Not all the time, right? It's way easier for the ladies to go deep. They don't like the shallow. Yeah. And so again, that's a broad statement. It's not always true. But for a lot of it, it is true. And so I think my hope is, be vulnerable enough to go deeper. Go deeper, especially the guys, because, man, you have something to give. Everyone does. Everyone has something to give. But be willing to go.
I liken what you talk about, the being shallow to deep. I always liken it to, you guys go to the beach, and you think that most times the beach is just a gradual, it gets deeper and deeper. I think for a lot of times, men, it's shallow, and then there's a drop off. We'll get to a certain point where it's like, oh, we're good, and then boom, and we're like, I need help. And someone was like, why did you wait to get to that point before you're like, you need help? this is a testament to someone. My wife, we've had that conversation before. It was like, I don't want you to be talking about how back a month ago you were really going through something for me to find out now. And thank you for letting me know that I'm not the only one that feels that way. But I want to let you all know, men and, I'm speaking to the men, but I know it can happen for the women as well. Never let it get to the point of no return, just like with physical health. If you nick your knee or if you step on something and it hurts, don't let it get to the point where your foot is green before you're like, I need help. And I know, again, we say that a lot. It's so much easier to assess a situation when you can see it. But when we think about mental health and we think that, oh, everything's fine because I'm not feeling anything, despite the fact that it reoccurs, don't wait till you get to a point where you're having suicidal thoughts before you come to not even a professional. Come to someone that you are confident in conversing with about it.
Now I gotta remember what I was gonna say. But somebody, come on, sit up. Sit up. Shake your shoulders a little bit. If you need to stand up, walk around. I know that this isn't the funnest conversation to have, but it's very important. And I want to make sure that we respect our guests, and that we respect the time that he has made to come here, but also that you all realize, the importance of having these conversations and the fact that this is our way of saying that we want to invest in you, we care about you, and we want you to know that you have avenues and places that you can go to. I'll put the button on the conversation that we were just having, and then I'm gonna open it up to y'all to ask some questions because we want to make sure that your questions are answered. I think that with all the things that, and maybe we'll talk about this next week, we'll get into a little bit of trauma. Maybe we'll get into it today, I don't know. But in all the things that are happening in the world, I think it can be easy for us to start to believe that it's the cruel world that we live in, and that we're surrounded by people who don't want to have our best intentions in mind, our best interests in mind. And I think that that's one of the things also from a positive mental health standpoint that we can counter with, rather than dwelling on the negative things that surround us, to find glimmers of hope as we go throughout our day-to-day dealings. And whether that starts with you writing down personally, reminding yourself of things that are good in your life. I know for me that helps me. But again, this is all about you figuring out what works best for you. It might be affirmations, it might be journaling, it might be, whatever, fill in the blank. But figuring out ways that you can remind yourself that you're not alone, that this world isn't as cruel as it seems, and even if it is cruel, that we have a savior who can solve all of that. But most importantly, having those things that can counter, the negative paths that you go on, that you might go on. And I think that a lot, y'all know me when I'm teaching, and I always give practical examples because a lot of times we overlook or we overcomplicate things because it's something that we don't necessarily understand. If I want to be skinny and I eat French fries every day, is that going to help me to be skinny? Or if I want to be the best, I played instruments in high school. If I want first chair, but I don't practice, I don't bring my instrument home, I don't challenge myself, I don't constantly work towards things that can help me to be better, first chair is not just going to happen. And this is not me saying that all the work is on you, but this is me saying that you do play a role in deciding how your mental health is going to progress. All right, cool. So yes.
Two things. Sorry.
Yep.
Sorry.
No. This is It's your world. We just living in it.
No. A lot of the times, so piggyback, outcome and effort, right? And a good example is thinking about grades, right? Grade is an outcome, right?
Woke up in.
Grade is an outcome. I tell people all day long, I don't care about the grade. I care about how much effort you put in. If you get a C, but you know that you studied and went to whatever, whether it's going to a teacher, be happy with that C. Now, I know this is a big thing for parents, but I tell parents this too. If you know your kid has put all this effort in, studying, doing the homework, maybe even staying after school, and still gets a C, be happy with that. My hope is that for everyone here. Focus on effort versus outcome. Mental health right there.
Let me shine that up, because I don't want y'all going home and saying,
I can get it. Mr. Allen said,
Mr. Allen said you should be happy with my C. What he's saying is,
they'll say, who's Mr. Allen?
You're right. Yeah. Like, I want you all to be clear. He said to focus on the effort. Again, we are not expecting that your efforts or what you are putting in is automatically going to garnish an A, and if it doesn't, that's not acceptable. He's saying that we should focus on the effort. Did that make sense? Again, we can go back and watch the video if not. But what I didn't want y'all to do is take advantage of that quote. All right? Really quick before we go into questions. So, correct me if I'm wrong. From what I remember, they said that the second cause of death, my note says the second leading cause of death from ages 10 to 24 is suicide, right? So, we're all here, right? That means there's people out there that you may be surrounded by that has thought about killing themselves. So, let's say, I'm going to give you a hypothetical, and I'm going to shoot it out. Noel, if someone came to you and said, I'm thinking about ending my life, what are you going to do? Exactly. That's exactly why we're here right now. I want to let you know, it's okay that you do not know. That's why we're here. And that's why it's very important for you all to really pay attention, because I know right now it may not seem important because you may not struggle with suicidal thoughts, with depression, with anxiety. However, we want you all to be able to be equipped with encountering someone. Again, in the video, we saw that their life was addressed because their friend interceded on their behalf. They said, hey, he mentioned it, and so their reaction was to tell their parents. And so I really want you all to think about, what are you going to do if someone comes to you and say, I'm thinking about, not even, you know what, I won't even say, so everybody, they're not bold enough to tell me to kill myself. Some people will say, some days I just want to sleep and not wake up. Some days they'll say, I just wish that, it would just end. They may not say that they're going to kill themselves, but they don't want to live. So my challenge to you is to think about, legit, your homework is think about, what are you going to do if someone comes to you, whether or not you're your friend or not. If it's somebody that you play video games with often, and then they just say, you know what, this is going to be the last day I'm going to be on here. Or you hear somebody in school say, you know what, this was fun, but I'm not going to be in school tomorrow. What are you going to do? Who has the question for that? Who can answer right now? What are you going to do if someone say, I just want it to all end?
Well, first thing I would do is try to put myself out there and talk to them.
Okay.
Because a lot of the times I know from experience that people who want things to end in life usually need somebody to talk to. So I would offer myself as somebody to talk to, and then I would also tell somebody older than me, preferably if it's at school, a teacher, or somebody at church, or I don't know, somebody who can do a bit more than I can in that situation.
Okay. That's great. I like that answer.
Would anyone ever ask, are you having thoughts of hurting yourself? Or are you having thoughts of suicide?
I'm asking directly. I'd be the person to kind of like, what do you mean by you want to say? Like, I'm the kind who will come around rather than go there.
And most people are, because it's more common, right? And I think I would say, and along with the video, the more direct you can be, the better. And sometimes it means, and it kind of sounds silly, but to practice in the mirror, right? Or to practice what to say. But the more direct you can be, the better it usually turns out.
Yeah. Okay. Who would consider themselves to be antisocial? I knew that.
Antisocial or introvert?
Yeah. That's a better.
I was going to do that one too. Well, you're introvert. I'm sorry. That's a much better way.
I am not antisocial.
I didn't want to see.
Introvert.
So what would be your answer? If someone would say, if you were online and they were like, you know what? This is the end of myself. What would you do? No, I'm sorry. I'll ask you too, but all the way in the back. If you don't have an answer for it, it's totally fine.
I would try to get them to stay on the line while I contact an adult.
Okay, that's fine. Again, this is I think, like Alan said and what they said in the video, when you approach someone who's thinking about ending themselves, it's that connection, that concern could be enough for them to second guess, I guess, for lack of a better term. And it shows that, like the question said, a lot of times people can feel like no one's reaching out to me. And if someone were to say, you know what, I'm gonna fix that, and then for that one person to be like, well, why do you feel that way? Tell me more. I'm concerned. You don't know how much of that that interest could be like, okay, so somebody cares about it. That means so much. And again, I want to really entertain those who may be disinterested in this topic to understand that you may be faced with a situation where your actions can depict how they would continue. I had to put it that way, but how you respond can really determine someone's life. And we talk about, weeks before this, we always talk about how important our lives are for other people, spiritually, socially, all the other stuff. But we never really think about how a certain decision that you make for sake of someone's life could mean so much. And we think about, this particular opportunity to talk to Alan, to watch these videos, to hear from these professionals, that we really take in this information. We're not just doing it. Pastor did not spearhead this opportunity just because he wanted to, but because there's a need. Again, it's the second cause of death for people in your age. So you are surrounded by people who are more than likely having them thoughts. That's just something to really think about.
Yeah, questions? Give y'all chance. Go ahead.
So, it's like mostly in the head, you can't really see it, but there's like signs of it that people are going through,
outward signs of suicide, suicidal thoughts, or just mental health, poor mental health, and mental health.
So I would say that it goes back to why I started at the beginning of those 6 categories. So if someone is struggling with some sleep, or maybe not eating, or like they're on a diet, right, which is they're starving themselves essentially. They are withdrawing socially. Maybe there's some mood swings, maybe some anger, some sadness, things like that kind of come out sometimes. So I think about those 6 categories, right? Those are good ways. If you know somebody really well, you can probably rank them yourself, really, of how they're doing.
Absolutely. To piggyback off of that, on a lower level, when someone is no longer showing interest in things that they really like. Say if you have a friend that always, it's a video game. If there's always someone who is like gung-ho, we're going to be online at 9 o'clock every Thursday, and all of a sudden they're like, I don't want to play that anymore. Or I gave up my Xbox. Or I decided I don't want to play football. Or I gave up all of my things that I like the most. Whenever you see that sudden, that concerning shift in behavior, I think that's enough to start inquiring about, what has caused that issue. And this is something that I learned a couple of days ago. If there's something that's like, that's not like you, that's enough for you to be like, hey, what's going on, buddy? Let's talk. Why are you giving away all your Jordans? Why are you why did you throw your Xbox in the trash? I know that if y'all saw your friend do that, they'd be like, something's wrong, right? So it's a sudden change behavior. Another one that I learned is they've had a major life change, whether they lost a family member, if they've moved drastically. There's something, if you've seen a big emotional change because of that life change, that's worth, investigating, for lack of a better term.
Go ahead, Noye.
I saw this thing where it's also when people start making like dramatic appearance changes.
Oh, they came to a ball.
Oh.
They, somebody come in, they head shaved off. I'm making light of it. I really shouldn't, but it actually is. And I know when I was in school, if a girl had a really bad breakup, she usually would cut all her hair off. It would be something really drastic, or dye her hair or something. I'm not saying anybody with purple hair just had a bad breakup, but I am saying that you're absolutely right. Those sudden changes or shifts in how someone might look, how someone might act, like those are other things too.
Yeah. Also, a sudden change in interest. Another one that really piqued my interest was when someone has a out of the blue or random interest in religion, or the flip of it is if they're disassociated themselves from the religion. That's another concern that professionals have said that could raise concern. If someone says, I no longer believe in God. Or if they're saying, so tell me more about this God that you serve, which may not mean that they're thinking about suicide, but there's definitely a presence of, I'm looking for an avenue, and I want to know what it is that you're doing that has you in this headspace. It gives you an opportunity to evangelize, but also that's a sign of, what has piqued your interest in this area all of a sudden.
Yeah, and you bringing that up actually helped me to think about, and Alan, you brought this up earlier too, that the word of purpose, having a sense of meaning and direction, not just to your life, but day by day, of how you can make a difference, how important you are, how valuable you are. And I think that in the church, we may do a good job of helping you all to understand how you have that purpose and value through your relationship with Jesus, but then how does that outwardly show when things don't go the way that you thought that they would, when someone close to you passes away, or when something bad happens in your life? And then we have these questions and struggles of, well, if there was a God, why did that happen? Or if there is a God, how come he isn't making me feel better about this particular situation? There really isn't a pretty button to put on the end of that. To put on the end of that is more so about how you can have a combination of practical things, which would be therapy, having conversations, figuring out more about your thoughts, your behaviors, your actions, and then coupling that with your spiritual foundation of what the Bible says and what you learned in here, and having those reminders. All of that to say, I want to really talk about some preventative things. The video refers to them as protective factors to suicide prevention, absolutely, but then also mental health issues. I can't remember if you got into this in the very beginning, the difference between mental health and having a mental health problem or disorder. But okay, yeah, this the wrap up question. I got you. Yeah. So let's end by talking about some preventative preventative measures or protective factors that we can be taking.
Yeah, I think one thing that I do personally and encouraged, and just to kind of give a little background on this. Generally speaking, has anyone ever watched the news, at least recently? It's a 30-minute show, typically, right? Of those 30 minutes, how much of it is negative?
75%.
Except for the last 30 seconds, minute, where they have a feel-good story, right? And there's research, why someone wants to research this, they do. How many positive comments do you think it takes to overcome one negative? Someone knew it. Who said 5? Yeah. 5 positive thoughts to overcome one negative. Okay? Think about that for a minute. And that goes for ourselves. If we have one negative thought about ourselves, it's going to take 5 to overcome to make us feel a little bit better, right? So something real practical at the end of the day, and like I said, something that I do personally, right before I go to bed, can I think of 5 good things that happened to me today? And write them down. I'll put them in my phone, in my notes. 5 good things. And a lot of the times, some kids will ask me, well, man, Mr. Allen, I can only think of like 2 things. And I ask them, and they're thinking about big. They're thinking too big. I'm like, an example that I usually give is lunch. Lunch was really good today. I enjoyed my lunch today for whatever reason, right? So it doesn't have to be this big event. But what are 5 good things that happened to you today? And keep track of that, right? Like that's one example of kind of keeping our mental health going and feeling good about who we are as people, right? Other protective factors, they do include, again, how socially connected someone is, what interests they have, do they have on a larger scale meaning and purpose? Like maybe you guys do know what you want to do when you get older. Great. If not, still great. I didn't figure out until 4 years after college what I wanted to do. It's okay. So all of those things are part of those protective factors, and having things to do for fun, things that you can do that are enjoyable for you. All of some examples. Cool.
What were the 6 things you said?
So we've got sleep, we've got healthy eating, we've got social connections, we've got managing stress. Diet. Yeah, healthy eating. Managing stress, meaning and purpose, and I'm forgetting.
Stress management, exercise, diet.
Exercise. Did you get them?
All right, Alan, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Not for
My
just
pleasure.
what you did today, but what you do in general for everything. I am going to close this out in prayer. The action items is remember to affirm yourself with the 5 good things. Try to do it every day, I think. I think that's a good mental exercise. So figure out 5 things. I would even challenge you all to ask someone who you're supposed to you, hey, what's something you like about me? That would probably help too. Also, I want you all to practice how you would respond to someone who says, I'm thinking of ending my life. That's your homework. Think of how you would react or respond to someone who is having suicidal thoughts. Okay? Great. I'm going to pray. I'm going to close this out. Lord, thank you for being awesome. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for giving us this opportunity today and placing the people where they are professionally and on your land to do what they do for the sake of our mental and our emotional and our social wellness, Lord. I pray that we continue to take advantage of what it is that you make available to us, that not only we can have mental wellness, but we can avail and provide mental wellness to those around us, Lord. We ask you to continue to work in us, work through us, work around us in every area in our lives. You're awesome. We love you. We give you honor and glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, you all be safe. You can head upstairs. Do it quietly.
Don't take my Sharpies or stickies.
Oh, man. Yes. We'll get into it. Come on. Right,
Oh, your glasses?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm ready.
They're not even